When you think about our system, the federal system that we're stewards of and the state system that we own as an organization or as an agency, taxpayers own it, but we manage it for them. That is a regional system, and it is designed to move things that are regional in nature, which is primarily moving freight, long distance trips. It's where agriculture, mining, timber, everything collected and found transportation to markets. So that's always been the case here, but everything that comes into Spokane that supports the local economy, supports the quality of life, supports the economic health, comes in on that system. There's a significant investment that the taxpayers have made in this system over generations. That investment requires consistent and timely maintenance to keep it in good working order. That essentially means it's in an operating condition, and we're going to see the life expectancy or a continued life expectancy out of the system. So maintenance is critical, has always been critical, whether it's capital investments or fixing potholes, that kind of thing. Spokane and the counties that we manage here in Eastern Region are, we're a significant snow area. The economy doesn't shut down in the wintertime in a snow event, and the reason it doesn't is because we and the local jurisdictions are out clearing the road. Obviously, if you live or associated with or relied on SR 27, that was a huge issue to you. The blowing and drifting snow down there continued to, as fast as we could clear it, it was blowing shut again, and we had to close it for several days. But that was a huge impact on those people. It impacted them financially, it impacted their well-being, it impacted their ability to support and help others. So it was a very significant issue for the people who lived along 27, and we certainly heard about that. They were calling in asking, when are we going to have this open? Now, our response to that was heroic, in my view. Our folks down there took command of a tough situation. They stayed in contact with the locals that were having issues. They actually helped them get to things that were necessary. But the biggest thing they did is they stayed in the battle down there through all the drifting and continued to reopen the roadway. So there was brief windows in all those closures where people could actually get some of their needs expressed. So it was a heroic effort by our folks. Couldn't have been prouder of them. We have 3 tow plows in this region. Those tow plows essentially make one driver equivalent to 2. It's a tremendous efficiency, especially on things like the interstate. And this is another leadership moment for our maintenance people, in my view. They are very flexible in terms of adopting some of this technology. I think we're the only region that has a tow plow at this point. They also have the extendable plows and other technology they're using for the same basic concept to create more efficiency out of one truck.
Got a real good feeling, like there is lightning deep in my bones.
I enjoy driving it, yes. Because I know I'm out there, I'm doing, one, you're saving the taxpayers money because it's just one individual, but you're clearing 2 lanes at the same time. You're out there making the highway safer for the motoring public to get to their destinations on time and safely.
These are all efforts by our maintenance folks to continue, and we're very supportive of this, but it's efforts by them to continue to stretch the limited resources and maintain the same quality of service. That's really what they're striving for when they adopt those technologies. If you ever get a chance to participate with the driver doing the tow plow, it's quite a dance they go through to run that plow. It's pretty cool to watch. I think a fair way to talk about this is we are trying to figure out how to navigate a significant revenue problem in preservation. And this is a national crisis. I want to say that again. This is not unique to Spokane, this region, or this state. But in terms of this state and this region, navigating this crisis requires us to make trade-off decisions. We will not be paving anything under 45 miles an hour. That's Trent Avenue, Division Street, and Francis Avenue. So those prime roads that are so important to this area are not going to see capital investments now. We will not be paving on and off ramps. We basically don't have a chip seal program anymore within the state. So our rural, the equity of that concerns me. Our rural roads are really not seeing any maintenance, capital maintenance investments right now. The chip seal program one cycle, you will notice a difference. So in about 7 years, you'll have a whole bunch of rural roadways that are showing significant distress. And that's how quickly that will happen. If you are a farm to market road and you're relying on a certain quality of BST route out there, it's not going to look like that in 7 years. It will impact your movement of freight and other things. The rural counties are very reliant on the system working in good order. There's a couple ways to think about the Keller Ferry. We need people to think about it as a bridge. And if you put a bridge across there, you start to understand why it is efficient to run the ferry. It would be an amazingly expensive structure to get across to Columbia at that place. It'd be something akin to what they're trying to do in Vancouver, replacing the I-5 bridge. So we're talking, this thing could maybe run up into the $1 billion range to get a bridge across there. So you can operate the ferry for quite a while for that. But from an equity standpoint, we talk about equity. You have tribal lands on one side. You have a state route that connects some remote rural areas. There are schools on both sides. There are grocery and doctors on both sides. To take the Keller Ferry out of service would require all those people to travel, 60, 70 miles more to make all those trips happen. And from an equity standpoint, that puts a significant burden on one of the poorer places in our state. So it is a very necessary element in my view. 195 and SR 26 are primary routes that young adults travel to go back to college at WSU. Both those routes have an unfortunate history of accidents related to those kids traveling back and forth to school. We have partnered with WSU and the Palouse RTPO really to focus on behavior. Behavior is a significant driver in most crashes, truthfully. But in this case, you can start to pick out a few things in particular that are impacting some of the crashes related to the young adults. DOT has agreed to put, we put signs out with messages on them, and the messages are meant to be entertaining, interesting, as opposed to the typical data type messages. They're meant to catch the attention of both the students and of the students' parents, who can help us talk to their kids about behavior. There is some mechanical, some engineering things that also help, and we've been after those as well. We put some passing lanes in on 195, and we're putting some of those in on 26 as well. The partnership has yielded, we think, some benefit. It's certainly been a significant topic of discussion around the campus, but we also think it's fundamentally helping. When the Commissioner French came and asked me, can you accelerate the work? Because it's important for us to bring Amazon to town. As a regional partner and somebody who sits at the table with these folks all the time, all these other agencies and other jurisdictions, it was within our ability to deliver it. It made the deal go, and we simply were being a good partner with them on this.
The way that they were able to step forward and meet an accelerated timeline to make the Amazon project a reality for this community. Couldn't say enough nice things about WSDOT and the way that they performed.
Let me show you what it's all about. Check it out. I'm gonna light it up. Yeah, I'm gonna light it up. Check it out.
Roger Millar and Mike Gribner and the local staff, everybody was on board and said, what can we do to make this happen? And every one of them performed and stuff. So you can't ask anything more from a partner than that.
What it looks like to me is that kind of cooperation across jurisdictions is what makes a region work well. It was what gives you the ability to make hard decisions about your system. And when you get into tough places like we're in right now financially, those partnerships are what gets you through those things.
Let me show you what it's all about. Check it out.
The amount of budget that we currently have is inadequate to fund the plan that was put into budget law by the legislature around the capital program, in particular Connecting Washington projects. The North Spokane corridor in particular has been, a discussion for a long, long time. Decades of conversations trying to get that built, and it is understandable. It's a big project. It's complicated. As you gain momentum, rules change, funding disappears. It likely is going to lengthen the delivery of the project, the timeline. It's an important project. I think there will be a lot of support to finish the project, but when is the question now. What kind of cash flow can we actually sustain around the project? When would we actually start to build the projects? As opposed to our projections just a few months ago, that we were thinking we had an 8 to 10 year window to get it done. That is probably in jeopardy now. The current list of Connecting Washington projects will have to look different, at least in terms of schedule, to accommodate the reduction in revenue that's out there. But there's no question there's going to be impacts. That will likely also impact our labor force. It will likely impact, it could even be deep enough to force us back into preservation. Our first priority has to be protect the investment we've already made. So the public over the many decades now has built a transportation system that has been the envy of the world. It is a big reason why we have enjoyed so much economic capacity and output, and it is why we have the quality of life we do in the state of Washington. We have a system that can take apples from Wenatchee to the ports or wheat from Colfax to the ports and do it in a very efficient way. So our first priority has to be to protect that, because as we expand the system, we get marginal gains in our potential economic output, but if we lose the system, we lose everything we currently have. From a big picture point of view, the system is getting old. And so even though we have maintained the system vigorously over several decades, it's still old. If you think about when the interstate was built, and you think about when roads, some of the primary roads around here, like 195, 395 North, when those were actually put into place, the bridges are getting close, they're reaching their lifespans. The roadways are operating with much more traffic and heavier overall volumes, but also heavier vehicles and such. They're handling things they were not anticipated to, so that we're stretching the design capacity of them. All of that stuff comes to a head around the maintenance and preservation program, because that's where you make conscious and deliberate decisions to keep the state of good repair in a place that satisfies those conditions. If we do not have money to effectively do all of the needs, then you're into a discussion about what needs get priority. And so that's where we are drifting into now, is the conversation about when something breaks, are we always going to fix it now? No. We won't have the money to fix it. What we will have to do is make decisions about what gets fixed that gets broken. And that has impacts on the overall health of the system. It certainly has economic impacts on the people and the folks around the areas where those decisions are being made. It is a worrisome trend. It's a national trend. I've tried to talk about this in a couple different ways. We really are reaching a crisis in this discussion, especially around keeping the current system operating. And it has direct economic ties to the health and the well-being and the quality of life of the people in the state of Washington.